You don't have to go through 6 steps to become an artist. You are an artist, and you may have to go through those 6 steps to make a living. You're starting off with a dare saying, hey, you know what? You're coming into my room. I'm going to send you back with laughter. It's a bloody dare. And therefore, you cannot compare it to jamming with your friends and having a few laughs, because the fact that there is no dare involved there. Every artist is now pushed into being entrepreneurial in some fashion or the other with their careers. And that keeps their artistic machine at least lubricated, while it may not pay so much. I think content creation is like describing making love as fornication. Right? Is that, so content creation is usually a word used by people who see art in hours or kilos or megabytes and gigabytes. Discipline is the genetic code of an artist. So I think authenticity is one of the most difficult things for an artist to identify, understand, and nurture. But that's the most essential thing that one needs to keep.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the KVKurious Podcast. Our guest for today is Karthik Kumar, a popular stand-up comic and the founder of Evam Tamasha. This conversation is a reflection on Karthik's journey as a comic, writer, actor, filmmaker, and as an entrepreneur. Karthik also throws light on some of the problems faced by artists when it comes to making a living, making a career out of their art form. And he throws some light on how social media has changed the landscape in terms of how artists are able to take their art forms to a larger audience. This conversation is more of a playbook if you're an aspiring artist or an artist trying to make it big. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Stay tuned with me. Listen to Karthik Kumar on the KVKurious Podcast and all that it takes to be a revered comic. Hi, Karthik. Welcome to the show. Welcome, KK, to the KVK show.
Hi, KVK. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Looking forward to understanding more of your life as an artist and what goes into writing, what goes into performing, and a lot more.
Looking forward to chatting with you. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So maybe a good starting point is for a long time, you've been lamenting about being typecast as American Maplai. What actually led to you getting the first role as an American Maplai? How did you even foray into films?
I was a very, very active amateur theater actor in my college days. Right. So I did a lot of drama with various amateur troops in Chennai. And therefore, I was constantly in the fray for various auditions of advertising, commercials, short films, films even. And in one of those auditions, and I think I'd just done an ad with the well-known cinematographer P.C. Sriram. And he recommended me to meet with Mani sir for casting of that film. And they were casting for the lead character. I think from there, I got to meet him, and he did think I was very, very young for the part, which was eventually played by Madhavan. And I think in that universe, I got offered a small part, which they were very hesitantly asking, saying, would you be keen? I said, yeah, anything. I would do pretty much anything on a Mani Ratnam set. And that's how I had no idea what the role was or what it entailed. But I think that the film became kind of iconic. And even though it was a short screen time, I think the impact of that film led people to accept me into a certain slot in their minds. And therefore, fortunately or unfortunately, that stuck on. So.
Got it. Very interesting. Okay, so I understand you graduated in 1999, and this is pretty much the boom of, the .com boom happening, bust happening, and all of this happening, and engineers in India flying to the US, and all of this happening. What sort of led you to stick on in India? And in 2000, Alai Payode came out, but you were still at your job after Alai Payode. What sort of led you to take this decision?
Couple of things. I think first was I was on the path towards finishing my education. So therefore, after graduation in engineering, I did my postgrad in marketing and MBA. All right. So I was on that path which said that, hey, I need to finish my education before I can consider seeking out a professional engagement or a journey in my own right. Right. And at that point of time, I was still flirting with the idea of wanting to be an actor or wanting to be a director, wanting to be a storyteller. It was a whim, but one that I was seriously pursuing because I was giving an inordinately high amount of time in my life to understanding the craft and understanding the world of theater and drama and storytelling and movies and all of that. So the option of most of my classmates were aspiring to go abroad. I had absolutely no aspirations whatsoever because I was not at all keen on pursuing the engineering field. And after I finished my marketing MBA, I was not keen on pursuing my marketing and MBA field as neither. Okay. Right. So I think it was the very romantic, idealistic notion saying, hey, can I make a living? If I have to make a living, can I make a living out of doing what I love doing? It was just that naive a thought. And for that, I required a certain corpus to be able to cushion any fall that I may have in my journey. And I felt the journey of being an entrepreneur alongside being an artist would be a very, very meaningful journey because one would somehow in some way feed the other. Right. And that naive notion came to reality, and it still exists as a meaningful, practical reality in my lifetime. Right. There is a part of me that is an arts entrepreneur, and therefore I'm a producer. I'm a executive head of a certain arts enterprise. At the same time, that gives me the space or the financial leeway to be able to pursue artistic journeys that probably would not be so financially rewarding immediately. Right. And vice versa. So today, when I do an acting role, sometimes I can pursue a certain business opportunity that has a certain needs a longer leash in terms of incubation. Right. So truly, I think operating today as an entrepreneur and as an artist in the arts field has been a very, very meaningful journey for me. And that's become the norm. I mean, 20 years later, it's become the norm. But 20 years back, I wished that such a Batman meets Bruce Wayne existence could be there.
Interesting. And like you rightly mentioned, now it has become the norm. What do you think would have given you the confidence back in the day, or was it just a wild experiment you put yourself in?
I think I was too busy figuring how to do what I love doing the most. Right. And therefore, I was extremely, I think, selfish in saying, I don't want to give my time to another employer. I don't want anybody else having dibs over my time and my energy, because I know for a fact that this energy is coming from somewhere inside. And I don't want to, I worked in a corporate job for 2 years, and I was extremely partisan about giving too much of my energy to that job. I felt like the job was taking away from me rather than I was giving it. Right. And that felt like, no, I should not do this. I should not do a job where I cannot give 150%. And therefore, the only thing I was willing to give 150% was the pursuit of my passion. And somehow I think I was very clear on saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to give this everything I've got. The other things can figure itself out. But first, let's give it 150%. So I think that period of giving it 150% without questioning what is it earning back for me was a 3 to 5 year period.
But when you say giving it 150% in the early days, is it just being around, or is it, trying to focus on a specific craft, let's say writing, or let's say auditioning and things like that?
Actually, you know what? It is. You do not have the leeway of giving a certain portal in the craft inordinately high amounts of time. You don't have it. You just have to figure everything. You have to become a jack of all trades as quickly as possible. So therefore, you are equal parts writing, equal parts directing, equal parts producing, equal parts technical crew yourself, equal parts marketing, equal parts hustling, equal part manager to manage a little enterprise that you've created. So we were an independent production house technically. And we were putting out live performances and we were doing live theater. And that was essentially our output. And therefore, in that space, I think I pretty much did everything from stage management to directing to becoming the marketing person for sponsorships. Every single role today that is occupied by an arts management universe, right? I did all those roles. So I was part of all those things.
So Evam was your first entrepreneurial venture.
That's right.
And how did you go about getting the first person on board for Evam? Be it the first show or the first artist?
I mean, it was Sunil and myself. So we were classmates from Micah, and we started on this journey together. I think the first person we convinced to join our journey was our junior from marketing school by the name of Preeti Sanjeevi. Right, she was in a well-paid marketing job out of campus at Midday in Bombay. Mm-hmm. And I think we just had to convince her saying, hey, let's do this. This seems like a fun thing to do. We know you are passionate about storytelling and cinema and theater. Would you like to join us? We don't know what we can give you, but whatever we make, you'll also make. So it was kind of like an equal executive salary that promised to her as much as we're promising ourselves. Right. And that's, of course, notional because technically speaking, for almost 2-3 years, we didn't have an executive salary at all. Right. So in that sense, I think convincing her was the first step. And she was a extremely important prime mover in the plans in the first 3-4 years of our company.
Got it. But how did you go about onboarding the first artist?
Artists at that point of time were all amateur artists. So which means that we were working with artists who were all doing theater and performing arts on the side. Mm-hmm. All right. So we were very conscious that we needed to maximize their involvement and make sure that we create plays that were popular enough that they will stay attached to the project. Because usually people who are moonlighting as theater artists have a side hustle, which is their main job. Right. So in that sense, I think the first 6-7 years of our entrepreneurship, we were working with people who are not professional actors per se. Right. And that was what also held us back to a certain extent, because the plays that we created, we couldn't work with an extensive tour of that play because the cast would eventually run out of time or interest to be able to travel with the play long and wide. Right. So we started working with people who could, after 7 years, we started working on contracts with actors who will say, hey, you have to stay with the play for 6 months. All right. Then we started hiring those actors into the enterprise saying, hey, no, now start acting only for us. We will find other acting gigs as well. We'll also find you other roles in the company that you may have to do because you don't have to do your job anymore. You can do this for a living. Right. So I think in that journey, and eventually today we have pivoted at midway into being a stand-up comedy talent incubation and production house. Right. In that sense, all of the artists we now work with, we encourage towards saying, start taking stand-up comedy as a full-time profession. We'll help you. We will craft the journey for you where from doing stand-up comedy on the side, you will be able to do stand-up comedy as a living. And I think that journey has thrown into the stand-up comedy world at least 5 to 8 artists today who are very, very well-known and leading artists in the stand-up comedy universe that came from the Evam Standup Tamasha incubation journey as such. So I think the journey of taking people into making this their profession has been a long and a tedious but a ongoing one. So we started with amateur talent who did not take this as their professions.
Very interesting. And even within the realm of stand-up, I think back in the day, they must have been amateur comedians that you sort of took, incubated and led them to where they are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. So this is very interesting, right? And I think this model holds true even today, where if anyone were to build anything in the world of media,
you largely start out as a production house, primarily because there is strong apprehension amongst artists, be it amateur or experienced ones, to commit to something or to sort of take that bet on themselves as well as their piece of content.
Yeah.
Why do you think there is so little risk appetite, or am I wrong in saying so?
I don't think it's a risk appetite. It's a question of imposter syndrome that most artists go through, saying, "Hey, I love doing this, but is this what I'm supposed to do?" And therefore, there's kind of a dichotomy in Indian mindset saying, "If I love doing it, I don't think it can be my job." Right? If I love doing it and it's my job, I should feel a certain amount of guilt associated with saying, "Oh my God, I don't feel like I'm working at all." Work is always associated with something that you put a lot of hours into and it drains you. We have seen our parental generation of parents coming back from work like, "Man, I just want to leave work back at, now it's family time." And, drawing boundaries, because work was seen as that thing you do to make rent.
Right.
Today, to tell a young artist saying, "Hey, no, you can actually do what you love for a living," there's a certain sense of disbelief with which those people approach it in the first place, saying, "Can I really? I'll get paid to do what I love." Second, the imposter syndrome is then saying, "But am I an artist? Today I wrote one piece, but tomorrow if you ask me to write 10 pieces, will I be able to write 10 pieces?" Right? So I think it's that self-doubt that will definitely stun them for a while before they can jump into the journey. And second is the corporate world and the world of having a job has kind of sedated us into thinking that a monthly salary is the greatest sense of assurance
Security,
you can have.
Yeah.
Right? And when somebody works in the corporate world and gets into the artistic space, they have to throw that notion out of the window, because as an artist, you are perennially a hustler in the field of figuring a living out of it. Right? I can for sure tell you that my artistic journey in the last 20 years, I have never had a steady salary or the assurance of a steady salary. There have been great years, there have been lean years, but it's been up, down, and it is a sine curve. Right? You should get used to that. And therefore, you start operating seasonally like a bear would in the Arctic. Right? You hibernate certain times, then you live and thrive, and then you go back into hibernation. And when you're hibernating, you probably create. When you're thriving, you practice the creation. So you have to get used to a different kind of a rhythm as such. And that rhythm should be supported in some fashion with the way you make money. So, you change the mode. That monthly salary, monthly rent, monthly maintenance, that cycle has to be broken out of. You have to mentally break out of it in order to your life to reflect that mental breakout.
But would you say that this sort of sine curve behavior would be true for every form of art, be it music? The reason I ask this question is, for instance, as a comic, you are the person who is writing it, you're the person who is performing it, you know exactly end to end what needs to be done. You can take complete ownership of it. As opposed to, let's say, someone's a singer and maybe a playback singer. They are typically not songwriters nor music composers. So they have to wait for someone to give them an opportunity. As maybe a comic, you're able to create your opportunity, which might not be so very true for many other forms of art. And if so, how do you think that part of being or waiting for an opportunity needs to be tackled?
I think the way you've described a playback singer right now is that definition of a playback singer, the way you defined it right now is extinct. Today, a person who seeks to be a playback singer or seeks to have work in playback, right, has to constantly be able to put social media properties out there that keeps them relevant, that keeps them people aware that they exist. All right. Because tomorrow when they get called for a playback opportunity, it's not only their suitability to that song. It's also the fact that they're probably popular or relevant in their own sphere of things. right? And therefore, they also have side hustles which are oriented towards saying, hey, I'm touring with a young band that I'm working with. I'm going and singing covers. I'm going and singing certain compositions of my own that I'm looking to. You're constantly keeping yourself artistically engaged. Otherwise, you can describing a playback singer as somebody who's sitting in the waiting room, waiting to be called by some music director is gone. That definition of an artist does not exist anymore. Every artist is now pushed into being entrepreneurial in some fashion or the other with their careers. And that keeps their artistic machine at least lubricated, while it may not pay so much. But if, like, for instance, I'll give you some examples of people in my universe, like a music director like Sean Roldan, right? Sean is a live performing artist and a composer. So there are small gigs that he does that makes absolutely no sense. And when you compare it with probably the remuneration he makes in a film, there is absolutely no parity between the two.
Right.
But I can tell you that if he did not do those live gigs, and that he will not be able to feed the artistic machine that he has created for himself. Right. And this is not very different from something that A.R. Rahman used to do in his time.
Yeah.
He had a live band that he was an integral part of. He was looking to do jingles in the commercial world and eventually found the opportunity. Right. So that definition of an artist does not exist anymore. If you're not an self-driven entrepreneurial hustler, you are going to have a very, very difficult time artistically, because you are going to be at the beck and call of the universe around there. And the universe is subject to market conditions.
So universe is mutual funds. Interesting. So are you suggesting that social media has sort of now become a portfolio equivalent for any artist?
Social media, I mean, at the very least, it's a very, very friendly medium that knocks on you to have a certain discipline towards putting artistic work out, right? Because it's an undeniable pressure today to stay socially relevant, right? Because if you stay socially relevant, then you have a certain critical mass of people that you can constantly keep performing to or putting work out there too. All right. Social media creates that algorithm itself, creates saying, hey, keep putting stuff out. And therefore, now you have to go back and say, no, I need to keep creating stuff. So in some way, in a healthy way, it keeps your artistic machine lubricated. That's what it does. But on the ugly side of it, it puts the unnerving pressure on you saying, oh, I need to keep feeding this machine.
Right.
And sometimes feeding this machine becomes my entire purpose. And therefore, you need to play social media in a way that it doesn't play you.
And how do you do that?
By finding the optimum frequency with which you want to engage with the medium. Optimum in the sense that you're not looking only for results, you're also looking for regularity. I'm going to keep putting content out there on a regular basis that is sustainable to me, but I am answerable to the social media vehicle as well as an artist, because that's one of the forums in which I am also constantly performing.
So do you think this sort of pressure of discipline is largely to sort of maintain or gather more reach, or is there more to it?
Discipline is the genetic code of an artist, right? We are struggling with discipline, and we win over discipline in a sense that when we adhere to it, we feel phenomenal. When we don't adhere to it, we feel very, very self-mutilating and feeling very, very unhappy about ourselves, right? Discipline is the name of the game. Unless somebody tomorrow miraculously comes and saves you with an opportunity that kind of catapulted your career, discipline is what keeps your hustle constant, ongoing, and you are staying relevant, most importantly, to yourself at all points of time.
But right? Staying relevant here, is it just to do with the fact that you're constantly hitting eyeballs on a daily or a weekly basis? Or is it more to do with the fact that, okay, let me take a break for 6 months, but people have seen my previous content, and when I'm going to put out a new content, people are still going to like this. They are going to connect with this.
The first eyeball on you is actually you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In that 6 months, when you say, I'm going to disappear for a while and I'm not going to get people to watch my work, in that 6 months, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing? That discipline is very critical. When nobody is watching, are you still performing? Right? That is the DNA of an artist. The DNA of an artist is, even when nobody is watching, you are performing. Because writing, in my world of stand-up comedy and film writing and stuff like that, are you writing today, even though this may never become a film? Are you writing today, even though this may never become a set or a joke or a show? Are you writing today because it's an artistic expression or a release for you? That is the first eyeball on yourself, is yourself. Right? In the 6 months when you say, I'm going away, I'm not going to be accessible to audiences. Are you inaccessible to yourself also as an artist? Right? So expression is, it should become a way of life. And therefore, you will start saying, hey, 1/3 of my expression, I'm going to share with the world. 1/3 of my expression is for myself. 1/3 of my expression is just a random play. I'm going to see what I'm going to do with this. So I think that is important. If you say that until audiences come, I'm not going to create something, then you're not a creator. You're somebody who's answering the market. You're a business.
Very
right. As an artist, I don't think the business side of it is only 1/3. 1/3 of the side is very personal, and 1/3 of the side is silly and experiment. Only 1/3 of your side makes money.
So, should an artist never take a break? Is that what he's saying?
Artists, nobody is allowed to take a break from living per se, right? So you realize between when let's say, for instance, I'll speak on behalf of a stand-up comic. When I've written this special, I've experienced something and I've put it into a piece, right? I can't immediately jump into writing my next piece. Why? Because I haven't experienced new things in life. Right. So it is very, very critical right now for you to experience life in order to be authentic about it when you express it on a piece of paper or in a song or in a movie. Right. Most people feel like, oh, no, I'm just a machine. You can just, I have 6 formats right now. You can just give an input and I'll give you an output on that format. Right. And that's therefore, like I said, therefore the artistic life is a sine curve. You have to experience things and go through a trough in order to be able to reflect it and write about it or perform about it in your sine curve up. Right? So it is, you don't ever take a break from the business of living. And honestly speaking, when we are touring or when we are constantly performing, we stop living. We are only performers. We are only distributing and releasing the craft. We are not experiencing life in order to be able to invest it into our craft. So when I say that artists should not take a break, artists should take a break where they live. At all points of time, constantly creating without living life will only make you feel so bored of yourself, because you will have basically 3-4 formats in which you're constantly thinking. You need to constantly find new ways to reframe your thought of living in order to be able to look at the same incidents in your life in a different way.
Got it. So how do you approach writing? In the sense, let's say you sit down to write a certain piece, right? Maybe you got an idea. Is it also the case that you might suddenly have a flurry of ideas? And if so, how do you decide or choose between what should actually be something that you focus on as your next special, for instance?
So it's very different from what it was 10 years back. It's very different from now. All right. Okay. 10 years back, I used to write about, hey, what would I like to watch as an audience? Because I when I see these performers talk about these things, I love it. I enjoy it. Do I have any thoughts along those lines? Right. So I was looking to entertain myself and entertain people like me. Right. So I was performing to the first bench audience of myself. Right. So which means that when I first wrote my first rom-com movie script, I love rom-coms. I want to write a rom-com and I'm going to be the audience for it. Right. Today, 10 years hence, I am now writing because I have a certain feeling that remains unresolved inside. I'm writing something that felt difficult for me to handle, and therefore, in order to process it, I'm treating my art like a very, very therapeutic diary entry. Right? My script, the film script I'm writing right now, has 3 lead characters, all of which are different parts of me that I'm not able to fully engage and understand in real life, and therefore I put my problems into the characters' problems on the page. Right? So in that sense, I think my work right now today is not to entertain myself, is to emotionally assuage, reflect, and reform myself in some fashion. Right? So the work is still meant first and foremost for me, but today it emotionally holds me. 10 years back, it used to dopamine excite me. Right? So in that sense, I am still putting myself first as the audience in both cases. And that is always, I think, the most important thing an artist should remember, that never allow your external audience to get the best seats in your artistic space. Otherwise, then you'll only do what people clap for them.
Right.
And that's a very dangerous loop to get into.
So I think this sort of bottom line concludes into telling that you perform art solely to express. Rest, everything follows.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything follows from there, because if when you express, there's a certain authenticity in that expression, and that authenticity cannot be in any way corrupted by external validation. Right. Because that authenticity, when it's put out authentically, that's when people resonate with it, and then you get validation as the second stage of validation. Okay. The first resonance you have to achieve is yourself and your art have to resonate with each other. Then you'll find 1 million people resonating with that art.
I'm asking a very naive question, but let's say you wrote a piece and you started performing. Okay. You did one show, and maybe there were, snippets where you expected a certain response from the audience, but maybe they did not resonate well, and certain other pieces where they unexpectedly resonated well. Now, this is one set of the audience. Now, how do you work through the iteration process? Do you sort of take this feedback and amend it immediately? Or do you, without any change, do you perform a second and a third and maybe 10 sets, and then you sort of look at, collective weighted average of how things happened, and then you make your amendments to the script?
Okay, so there are certain pieces in let's say there's a full piece. There are certain parts of that piece that you will, in your first draft, get no resonance from audiences. So the first question you ask yourself is saying, oh, is this, should I discard this piece? No, you don't ask that question yet. Did they not resonate with it because they didn't understand what I said? Did I not communicate adequately? Should I reframe my communication, or should I reframe the punch? Or even worse, do they not understand at all what I'm going through right now? Right. Imagine going to a bunch of rich people and talking about hunger. They won't understand. They have not felt hunger. They'll be like, I'm not able to, what? Okay, I'll laugh at your joke, but I'm not feeling it. Right? So they laugh at the joke because, oh yeah, hunger as a concept. Oh, okay, I got it. But if they don't feel it, then you know that you're preaching to the wrong choir. Right? So therefore, how do you make a rich person feel hunger? Then you start thinking, saying, okay, hunger, what is the feeling? Hunger is, oh, this is what you want it so badly, but there's no way you can get it. And therefore, you need to sit with that. Okay, so hunger is like probably hollowness that a rich person feels, because they feel like the whole world appreciates them only because they're rich. They hunger for something else. They hunger for validation for themselves, not their money. Right? So therefore, you try and transpose it.
Yeah, get metaphors into play.
Yeah. So you transpose it only to a certain extent because you want them to enjoy it. But you can't then thereafter say that I'm going to transpose it and perform only to rich people. No, you should be like, no, maybe this piece is not for rich people. I need to do this hunger as a concept to different kind of people. So you have to, at the end of the day, put out something that is authentic to you. You can't change your authenticity because the market, you have a different demographic of a market that is coming to you naturally. Right. So in that sense, I think to be authentic to yourself, your audience will find you and they will be your tribe. And today, social media gives you that platform where you can find your tribe. Right. So because 10 years back, when there was no social media for independent artists, we had to go out there and whoever turned up for your show, they became your audience.
Right.
Today, people are getting to see you and vibe with you on social media and they become your audience. So it's, you're already creating a brand and that brand is becoming your walk-in customer. And that's a very, very healthy state of being.
But do you think there's a significant attrition rate in a certain audience, elevating from your being an audience on social media to being your, let's say, audience in a real hall or a stadium?
You call it attrition? No, I think there are people everybody on my social media likes my vibe.
Correct.
Right? They're not there because this is literally a place where nobody's forcing you to be there.
Yeah.
Right? So people who are engaging with you on social media love the vibe. Some people want more of that vibe. They come to your show. They want that vibe in person. They want that vibe. It's the difference between watching F1 and then saying, dude, in my life, I want to go for one F1 race.
Correct.
There's a difference between that, right? Like you love F1, you watch it, you enjoy it. Somebody who says, no, I want an F1 jacket. I want to wear an F1 jacket. Those people who want more from, this is similar to your favorite music band. You listen to the favorite, but there are some people who want the first album, first draft, they want to hear it. Right. So they are super fans and they want more of that vibe. And that is who come to the live show. So the live shows are the most, I would say, the most vibiest experience for the artist and the performer and the audience.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So on some level, do you feel sort of this urge to, let's say, of course, all your audience on social media vibes with you and clearly, and now you start seeing a certain, turn up rate in terms of how many people turn up to your show. At some point, do you sort of feel pressurized telling, oh, maybe there should be more people that turn up to my show? And do you feel the pressure to sort of cater in a way that it vibes with more people?
No, I definitely feel the first part, which says, oh, I wish there were more people. I feel that sadness, right? But if the answer to that sadness is, oh, I need to start changing my own content, right? Then in that case, you lose the essential people who vibed with you in the first place.
Right.
Because why did they vibe with you? Because you created a certain vibe that was authentic to you and they resonated with it.
Right.
If you start creating something to resonate with somebody else, then you are trying eager to please. You'll realize in relationships in life also, where you were yourself and people loved you, is a much more sustainable relationship than saying, oh, what do you like? I will be that. You will find those relationships existing, but they won't last for long. Right. So I think authenticity is one of the most difficult things for an artist to identify, understand, and nurture. But that's the most essential thing that one needs to keep.
Got it. So as an extension to that, let's say you start performing shows and, do you initially plan out how many shows you're going to perform on a certain tour? Or on what basis do you arrive at this number?
Oh, okay. I think I can speak for actually most comics on the upward swing right now, or seeking to have an upward swing. When you start off, you never know how many shows you'll perform. All right, because when you do a tester of the show, like this, I'm currently touring with a show called Aansplaining, which is about gender conversations in our society. Right. When I started testing the show, right, when I was putting it through its tester phase, I was realizing, saying, how are people vibing with it? What is are they engaging with this conversation? Do they want this conversation? Right. I started gauging that and I realized that, hey, you know what? I'm going to treat this as the way people are receiving it right now seems to be extremely reflective, personal, and cathartic. Right? It's not, they're not receiving it like, oh my God, this is so hilarious. I felt so energized and silly by this. No, they actually, at the end of the show, they felt reflective. They felt like, wow, that, you know what, that's so interesting. I'm so glad. I felt like I read a good book.
Yeah.
Right. So it felt like a good book reading experience. So therefore, immediately as I was testing the show, I realized I wanted to perform in venues that are 100 to 200 seaters. In fact, I love performing in 50 to 25 seaters with this show because it really creates a very, very intimate book experience, or it makes people feel like, hey, these 100 people are like me. They feel like they're a very safe space gathering of like-minded souls. Right. So I immediately realized that, okay, I think this is the kind of venues I'm looking for this tour. I'm not looking for that 600 and 1,000 seater. Although in my first phase of the tour, I had certain number of 600 and 1,000 seaters. Right. And I realized the kick of that 600 and 1,000 seater was not at all comparable to the 100 and 150 seaters. Right. So therefore, that was one of the first criterion that I decided, saying, you know, this is the way this show has to be received. And thereafter, I started performing. And as I'm performing, I'm realizing, now, is this show creating a tribe? Are people going out saying, hey, you know what, you should watch this?
Right.
So that started happening. And when I realized that started happening, I know for a fact that this tour need not be this much. It can become this much.
Right.
And when it becomes this much, it can become even more this much. Right. So it was not performing, saying everybody saw it and they were happy with it. They went home. Everybody saw it and said that, you know what, I know 6 people in my life who have to see the show.
Right.
Right. So that created automatically. So therefore, what I thought would be a 30 to 40 show tour today is a 55 show tour, which already got another 45 shows already bespoken for. Right. So I know for a fact at the end of 100 shows, I will retire this tour because I'm done. I'm emotionally done with this piece. Right. But the fact that it reached 100 shows is because of the nature of the content.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have only planned 25 to 30 shows and said, now let's see what this show, does it have a future? I don't know.
Right.
So that's how you start. But when you're testing the show, you know, you will understand saying, you know what, this has this kind of a vibe or this kind of a response. What's the ideal setting in which it would reach its maximum appreciation in a live space? What is the kind of space? What's the kind of setting in which the show has to be received?
So I think it all boils down to saying, I mean, if people have really resonated with it, then it's going to become a word of mouth at the end of the day.
Yeah. And what kind of word of mouth? Is it like, oh my God, I'm going to call all the people in my life right now who like a good laugh? No, I want to call those 4 people in my life who will vibe with what he's saying.
Vibe with what he's saying. Yeah. So in your words, it's the aha to aha.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, okay. I was having this discussion yesterday with a friend of mine where we were speaking about how is it different to be funny amongst friends versus being funny on stage. And maybe there's a huge gap between the two phases.
Yeah.
What goes into, let's say, transcending this gap?
I think when you're funny with your friends, there's a certain abandon with which you approach your rhetoric, right? You're not worried about what you're saying. You're not worried about who you're saying to because you know them so well. And therefore, it's analogous to being high after a couple of drinks, and then you're just jamming with your friends.
Right.
Now, you cannot say that's humorous and that's funny because you have a lot of inside references. You have a lot of you are enjoying a certain camaraderie that you're having with your friends. You're celebrating familiarity. You're celebrating comfort. You're celebrating a certain enjoyment of both of us having similar thoughts or enjoying each other's familiarity of those thoughts. Right now, you can call it funny, you can call it, but that's not technically comedy.
Right.
Right? It's a fun vibe. Right? And to confuse that, because you're not right now starting that saying, you know what, I'm going to tell you a joke right now. The minute you've said, I'm going to tell you a joke, you've killed the joke first.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, joke, huh? Okay, tell. Hey, you start by saying, hey, let me tell you something. You know what happened last week? And then you start telling, and then you will. But if in your own friends forum, right, tomorrow, try doing this. Get high after a couple of drinks. Friends are jammed and saying, Macha, I'm going to tell you a super joke right now. And then say it. They will laugh at the joke. They will not laugh with the joke. They'll laugh saying, you thought this was a joke, a bloody stupid joke. Right? Stand-up comedy is very different. You're starting by saying this is a stand-up comedy show. You're starting off with a dare saying, hey, you know what? You're coming into my room. I'm going to send you back with laughter. It's a bloody dare. And therefore, you cannot compare it to jamming with your friends and having a few laughs, because the fact that there is no dare involved there. Like I'm saying now, go back to your friends and say, Macha, I'm going to tell you the most hilarious 3 things. You know what happened last week? When you say, I'm going to tell you the most hilarious things, they're immediately judging, saying, that's not so hilarious.
Right.
Oh, it is so funny. That happened to me also. They're immediately getting into a rational mind of judging you.
Yeah.
So comedy, as we perform it as stand-up comics, we are already subject to that judgment. We're subject to that measurement. We're subject to your rational mind as much as we are engaging your emotional side. And as much as we can engage your emotional side, your rational side will be quiet.
Right.
If only your rational side is engaged, you will come out reviewing me like an Uber driver. Right? You know, I've been dropped to the airport by 10 times. This Uber driver was not at all good. Right? We are not Uber drivers to the airport. We are spaceship drivers into the unknown. Right? You can't say, last time when I went to the unknown is unknown. Right? This guy took me to a different unknown. She took me to a completely different unknown. I don't know what I was ready for. I got into the spaceship. I knew it was a spaceship, but man, they took me into orbit, man. So as much as we can emotionally engage you into a journey, your rational side will stay calm and quiet. So we have to tick the boxes of your rational side, but surprise you emotionally. It's not very different from a chef presenting your dish that looks familiar, but when you taste it, you're like, what? This is so different, but yet familiar. But what is this? That's it. That's essentially what an artist is seeking to do.
So is the at the end of the day, is the element surprise?
Surprise is extremely important. Surprise is the essential DNA of comedy. Comedy is tongue. Comedy is tongue. That's only comedy. You can never know where you're going. I have to surprise you at every turn. And by the end of 100 turns, you don't know where you are. You're like, my God, how did I get here? What the hell? Where am I? What is this? Where are we? Okay, show's over. Lights on. Oh, wow, I'm here only.
Yeah.
So every art form is that. And cinema is probably the most visible, visceral reminder of that, because you get into a dark room and then you come out in the light.
Makes a lot of sense. But is there a scientific approach to sort of tapping into this emotionality and rationality and then, coming up with an element of surprise? I understand it's the job of an artist, but is there a scientific process to it?
The science is similar to the rules of any craft. Like there are 100 rules that will help you. You should not follow those rules in order to understand the craft. You learn why those rules are in the first place. Okay, so understanding those rules is a very essential portion of the craft, because then you know what rules to break, or what rules that you have broken, or what rules you have bypassed.
Right.
When teachers give us rules, they are laid down rules in order for us to be obedient. When when art tells you rules, right? Those rules are science, so that you understand why why is it that oxygen plus hydrogen in one certain condition with a certain catalyst forms water? That's all. Right? Now you can say, hey, I don't want water, I want H2O2.
Right.
Right? So in that sense, you have to understand the science of it, and that itself is a significant time spent with the craft. But don't say that just because now I've put these H and O together inside a room right now, they should become water. No, you can't. You have to understand saying, what else can you do with it? So far, people have already seen water. People have seen H2O2. Can I try something different? Can I add carbon to it, and can I make this into a hydrocarbon of sorts? Can it start burning? You don't know, right? That is the fun of art, where you try and see, how do I mix? Like, for instance, in my current show, I've mixed a personal, emotional story with a very, very important gender conversation or feminism. And I've said I'm mixing that with comedy. Now, what is the feeling this will create? I don't know what this combination will create. Sorry. Yeah.
Is everything
I don't.
okay?
I don't know what this combination will create. Right. So that is essentially the fun you have with the craft.
But in this, let's say in 2023, and maybe in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of momentum around content creation as a full-time business.
Yeah. Do
you think content creation alone is maybe starkly different from an artistic approach to things, or is it as equal an art as any other art that we conventionally know of?
I think content creation is like describing making love as fornication. Right? Is that, so content creation is usually a word used by people who see art in hours or kilos or megabytes and gigabytes.
Yeah, you can standardize it.
Yeah. So when I say, hey, you know what, I've written a show right now and I want to perform, how long is it? Which all platforms can it go on? I'm like, oh, what? I don't know. That's only content creation. So where you're trying to, you chunk it down and you treat artists as, hey, I have about 6 hours of content on my platform. 6 hours of content would have been my entire lives. 1 hour, I would have given 3 years of my life to that 1 hour of your 6 hours of content.
Yeah.
Right. So content creation is, artists should not see themselves as being in the content creation world. It's a very dangerous definition of yourself. You can't see yourself as a content creator. You can be called a content creator and acknowledge saying, yeah, you may think I am a content creator. But if you see your life as an artist as content creation, then then you get into that very, very toxic relationship of saying, hey, wow, that happened to me. That's content. This happened to me. That's content. This happened to you first. Process, reflect, assimilate, understand, then put on a piece of paper. Right. So in that sense, if you see yourself as content creator, everything becomes an item. Like, for instance,
Yeah, but isn't this very ironic? Because somehow at the core of it, maybe excluding the long tail, but at least there's a significant chunk of people who are all aspiring artists. And maybe they choose content creation as the route to becoming a known face that will lead them into opportunities to be an artist.
Well, you don't have to go through 6 steps to become an artist. You are an artist, and you may have to go through those 6 steps to make a living. Right? So there are 2 kinds of artists. Artists who don't make a living, artists who make a living. That's it. If you define yourself as an artist, you are an artist who doesn't make a living yet. And making a living and not making a living is like the seasons. That's all. It's this month I'm making quite a good living with my art here. Next season you may not. So you first have to define yourself and understand that you have chosen to be an artist. An artist is somebody who lives life, experiences life, and then chooses to reflect that life into an art. That's all. Everybody else is feeling something, is going through life and just feeling and going through life. That's all. They don't in any way. Nobody in the world of software engineering saying, you know what, I went through a breakup right now. I'm going to put this into my code.
Right.
Nobody says that. Right. In fact, the beautiful way in which when you saw Social Network and he broke up and then he went and created Face Mash.
Right.
Right. Now that is technically that is an art. He's taking that anger and that vent and he's putting it into saying, bloody, I'm going to create a social platform that is art. But whereas today a software engineer sitting in Facebook right now coding for the meta is not an artist. Right. He has to create. He may be feeling sorrow in life, but his code is not going to reflect that sorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, tomorrow you should realize that living is my purpose. Reflecting on that living is my art. I'm an artist. Right. So I may now, next step, I'm saying, now I want my art to make a living for me. Okay, for that, I have to start understanding, saying, what are the needs out there? Hey, is there a need for, if I want to become an actor, is there a need for an actor in your drama too? Is there a need for an actor? I will do this. Can I do all of these projects right now? Because it will keep paying the bills so that tomorrow I can not be worried saying, oh my God, I need to go take another job. Because the problem with taking another job is that your entire life gets defined by the job. 10 hours of your life disappears into the job. So you don't get to experience anything other than what the job offers you.
Right.
Right. So therefore, that's essentially the important thing where you realize that you're an artist first. Making a living with your art is a different game altogether. It's a different game and it's a difficult game. And when you do crack it, you realize it's a meaningful game.
But is there a playbook to it? Is it first of all dependent on the genre of art, or is that sort of a more generic playbook?
I definitely would say there are playbooks in various spaces. Like, for instance, the most difficult art form to make a living out of is poetry. Right? Because everybody is a poet.
Right.
Right? Now, what did poets do, therefore? Poets put out poetry and they also saw themselves as lyricists and dialogue writers. Right? That's for a playbook that many poets have gone through. A poet like Javed Akhtar, right, realized that, hey, I can write stories. I can become a storyteller. I can become a screenplay writer. But he was always a poet hiding behind a screenplay writing universe. Right? When eventually he could make a living out of it, he said, no, I'm just going to write poetry.
Right.
And therefore, I will be a lyricist. But I'm still first a poet. Lyrics is the content creation piece of it. Right? You need content, you employ me as an artist. And therefore, you call me a lyricist. I'm not a lyricist. I'm actually a poet.
Right.
A stand-up comic is technically a writer. That's what you are. You're a writer. Right? Because that's the difference between improv and stand-up. Improv is on the fly. Stand-up is a very, very practiced, created, curated, prepared art form. So you're a writer first. So today, stand-up comics immediately go into writing rooms and they become writers in a certain script. So they are in the idea of taking this thing and dramatizing it or fleshing it out.
Right.
So therefore, you will I've seen comics right now become writers in writers' rooms. Comics also have become influencers and trainers of comedy.
Right.
But essentially, they're an artist.
So most of these writing sort of, let's say, as a comedian, you're a very good writer. And all of your, let's say, your writing gigs, are they mostly inbound or outbound?
I mean, as long as you have enough inbound, okay, is it inbound or outbound? What is the difference between inbound and outbound in this case?
Like, do people
writing for
reach
yourself
out
or?
No. Do people reach out to you that please write, or do you go out seeking for writing opportunities?
I don't think you should go out seeking too much. You should go out just enough that you get a couple of projects and you keep them alive. Because if you start saying, no, a couple of projects led to another 10 projects, you will only be writing work for the world. Right? So it's very important to write work for yourself as well. So you need to do as much work for the world as much as you do for yourself. If you maintain that balance, then you can maintain an artistic identity. Otherwise, you'll become a content creator.
I mean, because of the last sentence that you mentioned, in a comedian's head, is there ever a time where you feel like, oh, he's a much better comedian than me, or maybe he's receiving much more audience reception than me, and maybe I've got to do better? Is there a benchmark that you compare yourself to?
I think every comedian envies a certain bunch of comedians for their craft, envies a certain bunch of comedians for their hustle and their business. Right? So envy is therefore constant. The people whose businesses and hustles you envy will only create pain in you. People whose craft you envy will create a certain aspiration in you. That's all. That's the only difference. Because somebody else's craft, if you learn from, you can eventually better your craft. But somebody else's business or hustle you envy, right? You can't really learn from them. You can say, okay, that person is, okay, they're doing such big shows. Oh my God. I can learn saying, okay, from that, what do I want to do? You should not learn from them saying, if I did that, will I become that? No, you can't really become that.
Because you will not be able to replicate what they're doing.
Yeah, because that has a lot of market implications that if I did what that person does, I will not automatically become them. Right? Whereas if I did what they did in their artistic space, I can become a better artist.
So I'm a bit digressing here, right? But when you originally conceived the idea of Aansplaining, you were flirting with the idea of, let's say, speaking about gender conversations and then making people relate to it and bring out the core essence of it and the message behind it and stuff. Now, there could be multiple ways you could channel it. You could have made it into a movie. You could continue to make it the way you're doing as a comedy show, as, much more in-person experiences where you directly communicate with the audience. Why did you choose this particular medium? Why not, let's say, a movie or another medium that I'm not sure of?
I think in this period, whatever I wrote, so technically speaking, if I were to describe Aansplaining in one line to you, it shows you men can be of different shades.
Yeah.
And men can be colorful too. Right? It's basically saying, let's allow ourselves to be colorful. Let's dance like a peacock. Right? So that is the one line in which I went to write stand-up comedy. And at the same time, the script I was writing has two lead actors, two men who are absolutely different polarities. One is fire, one is water. Right? And the interplay between these two men becomes the story. So I won't say that whatever I was going through in life, whatever came out, whether I wrote a song or a poem or a piece of comedy or a script, it became a vehicle for that expression. Right. So the script I wrote in that period has a similar kind of a reflection, but it's fictional. It's a commercial film. It's dramatic. It is emotional. It is action. So, but the feeling is pretty much the same.
Oh, so are you saying that you've chosen multiple vehicles parallelly?
I am the content source. When it went into different vehicles, it's essentially me in different formats. So it's one is a train, one is a plane, but both are carrying the same thing or similar things.
Based on your recent interactions, let's say in the last couple of years with upcoming comedians, what do you think is one thing they're doing, maybe one thing that they could do differently?
I think one thing that they are doing already is that they are already realizing very quickly that they need to be absolutely different from everybody else. Because everybody is there in that rat race right now where there are 100 rats and they all can't look the same. Right. They realize immediately that, dude, I need to stand out. I need to be unique. I need to be different. And one of the dangerous things that I think comedians, one generation back, maybe 2-3 years back, were doing is they will imitate their favorite comedian. Right? Because they think that will make them stand out.
Right.
without realizing that they're not standing out. They're looking like somebody else. They're looking like a cheap replica of somebody else. Today, I think stand-up comics are struggling to do the right thing, which is to find their own form, find their own style. What am I talking about? What is the speed and pace at which when I talk is most natural to me? How do I stand? What do I wear? What am I leaving the audience feeling? I think that is the most tough. I mean, that's what in stand-up comedy, I think they keep referring to as finding your own voice.
So on some level, it's a lack of self-awareness that doesn't translate into authenticity.
It is, I wouldn't say lack of, it's journey towards self-awareness that eventually helps them find their authenticity. That's important. It's not saying, hey, I want to become like that comic. I want to become like that comic. So I'm going to start doing dark jokes. Right? I want to be that comic. So I'm going to do reality-based humor. Well, I want to be that comic. I want to be a one-line punch comic. You can't do all these. You can't define your output. You have to first say, what do I feel like? When I feel like this, and this is the way I do it, and this is what comes out, and it seems unique. I don't even know if it's stand-up comedy. Right. And that's a very beautiful space, because then you will eventually create a new facet to yourself, and you will create a new facet in that space. You will definitely stand out because there's nobody like you. Right? I mean, just look at somebody, a beautiful friend and an exponent of this, expert exponent of my craft is somebody like Zakir Khan. Right? 7 years back, he was doing English comedy with Hindi punches. Then he realized, you know what, I think Hindi. I think poetry. I'm going to start creating poetry into my comedy. Right. So he is becoming more and more his authentic self. And that creates a certain tribe for him, which is phenomenal. But 5 years back, up to 5 years back, he was still saying, what should I do to make people laugh? Kis baat pe has rahe hain? I'll make them laugh at that. No, now it's like, no, this is me. I'll find my tribe. I think all of us artists who have found our authentic selves or have become comfortable with our authentic selves or feel very, very natural being our authentic selves will start growing our tribe.
So how do you define that point of inflection where the transition happens between, even in your case, you were mentioning 10 years ago, you were sort of thinking from the standpoint of, if I were the first seater audience, how would I react to it? Versus now you just create to express. So what results in this transition?
I don't know, man, just life experience, awareness, in my case, therapy, and finding your most natural self. I think there is no, there is no science to it. It's not, you have to keep your antenna on to sense where you are feeling inauthentic, where you're feeling like you are pressured to do something and you feel compelled and you feel like you're straying away from your what feels natural to you. So you have to keep your antenna and your senses on high alert in order to be able to sense, hey, what feels real to me? What is me? Who am I? And I think that's an essential great demand of self-awareness that is brought to you. And not all of us are capable of it. I've found my most authentic self at 45. And that's probably 20 years too late. But that's how long I've taken.
Right.
So it's, I'm sure emotionally intelligent people do it faster. I'm probably less so.
But don't you think artists are supposedly the most emotional, or at least emotionally intelligent people that we might find around?
No, I think we are also the most emotionally stupid people. We are emotional first.
Okay.
And when you can't control your emotions, you're actually stupid. So it's not emotional intelligence. You are not unable, you're essentially like sometimes as artists, we tend to become so empathetic in a negative sense that we will take on the color of the audience. we'll become,
One among them.
we'll start feeling like, actually, your pain is my pain. Like, no, it's not. It's your pain is your pain. You first feel the pain, then you'll know it's your pain. Right? So in that sense, we are emotional beings. I don't think we're emotionally intelligent.
Very interesting. And there's a question I asked to everyone, right? Like, if you were to restart your career today at 23, would you do anything differently?
No, I won't do anything differently, because I think my journey of my own authentic stupidity led me here. And that was what was fun. If I had not made any mistakes, then my life would have been extremely, I would think, boring. And I would have got bored of myself by 29, 30. Today, I'm still intrigued by myself. I'm not fascinated and extremely interested in myself. I'm intrigued. I'm like, why am I not understanding this? Why am I not getting this? Why is this making me feel challenged constantly? I think that struggle is what is a very, very involving truth to stay engaged with. If I'm the person, if I thought I've cracked everything, I would have closed shop and disappeared very early. Today, I still feel like life is getting the better of me. I want to understand how it's getting the better of me.
So as an artist, is there something you look forward to at any given point of time?
You don't look forward to it, but you have learned also that there is something to look forward to. You don't look forward to it, but you know that there is something to look forward to. Is the next, I would say, the next season of pain.
Very interesting.
Like, for instance, I will give you an example. I'm finishing writing my commercial film script. The next 6 months, I know I'm going to be approaching actors, producers, blah, 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 blah. I cannot tell you how exciting that is and how painful that is.
Right.
It is pain. It is rejection. It is apathy. People will be like, You'll be like, oh my God, this is so painful. I've put in 2 years of work into the script and you don't even care enough worth 2 minutes.
Right.
That pain I'm looking forward to. I'm not eager for it. I'm like, okay, that's coming 6 months. Let's see how that goes. So you learn that from that pain, something new will come. Something good will come. You will therefore start looking forward to that pain. That's all.
And one piece of advice to aspiring artists.
Don't see your art as content creation, or don't see your art as business. Don't see your art as a means of making a living. Your art is you. You have to hone it. You have to understand it. It should become a beautiful vessel for the being that is you. And therefore, treat it, create with love and create with a gentle kindness, and pour all your pain and love and vulnerabilities and unsurety into it. And then second stage, worry about, now how do I sell this? If you start with what do I sell, then you've nipped it in the bud from there itself. That's like saying, hey, I'm thinking of having a child. How do I make it Einstein? I think all our previous generation of parents did only that. No? Mera beta, first beta. Hey, we don't even know beta, beti. No. I'm next to my son will go to the moon.
Right.
You got a daughter, then you're like, oh shit, how do I make my daughter go to the moon? What can daughters go to?
Let's call her the moon.
Yeah. They all are. Don't treat your art that way. Your art will come out stillborn.
Very interesting. Thanks for this wonderfully reflective conversation, Karthik.
Pleasure, KVK. Pleasure. I don't know if this will make any sense to anybody who's listened, but I wish them luck anyways.
No, I think it's thoroughly going to make sense for a lot of aspiring artists.
I hope so.
Thanks for your time.
All right.